Brandon, this week on a podcast that I will not name because it is not ours, Renee Paquette, formerly WWE Renee Young, Kayfabe Renee Moxley, actually Renee Good, but whatever you call her, she said that when she worked in WWE, when she originally got hired, they made her go into Manhattan once a week to get rid of her semi-still active Canadian dialect. Brandon, you find that kind of weird at all, especially because I'm somebody who would go into Manhattan every single week to do the opposite, because I want to speak more Canadian, eh?
Well, for you, I'm not surprised because Canada is like your second home, but it does not surprise me because you know how Vince McMahon is. He's a very quirky individual. We could talk about the stories that we've heard over the years. He's just a quirky guy, so that doesn't surprise me one bit.
He's Brandon, I'm Jared. The Heel to Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad election to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Heel to Face podcast is here. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify, so you can watch us. You can listen to us. He's Brandon. I'm Jared, or he's Kiki. I'm Tierney. He's Keyshawn. I'm Jay Will. Whatever you want to call us, as long as you're following the Heel to Face podcast, that's what's most important. So make sure you follow us, subscribe to us, listen to us, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about in this world of professional wrestling. A very busy week in professional wrestling, AEW, WWE, and everything in between. On the teaser to start this episode, we were just talking about Renee Paquette, Renee Young. She has her own little podcast going on now. And we were talking about, is she losing her Canadian dialect? And one thing I just want to add to that I find very strange is that WWE would have an issue, I guess, with a Canadian dialect, because if you remember, their kayfabe president for a very long time was Jack Tunney, who was from Toronto, a blue blood Canadian, if you will. And don't forget, there was somebody in WWE who had quite the strong Canadian accent. And it's kind of funny because WWE fans, I believe at the time, or WWF fans, probably thought, is that an accent we hear on that guy? And they said, yes, it is. It's Scottish. His name is Roddy Piper. It's not Canadian, not at all. And idiots like me believe that. And it was only until I found out that he was Canadian that made me go, wait, why did I think that's a Scottish accent this whole time? How stupid am I? I know you bought it too, Brandon. I knew you probably thought, is that how they talk in Scotland? And now that we obviously have Drew McIntyre around, we know what a bunch of idiots we were.
Yeah, we were young kids at this point, so we were kind of gullible, I guess is the right word. And yes, if you hear Drew McIntyre talk, right now at this point, you can tell it's a very Scottish accent. Nikki Cross, same thing. Yeah. There's certain words that you hear that you're like, the way they say it, you're like, yeah, they're definitely not from the United States. Another one who has a really interesting accent when he says certain words, Sheamus. Sheamus is another one. He's got a very, very Irish accent.
Yes. The point is, Roddy Piper, Drew McIntyre, they do not sound the same at all.
No, not
but
at all.
There is a man with a very noticeable accent who is about to win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania and seek glory as a champion in WWE. He's a man who a couple years ago at WrestleMania, the theme song was Green Light by Pitbull. He just wrote a book called Green Lights. So my question to you, Brandon, is, does Matthew McConaughey, when he enters the Royal Rumble, eliminate the most amount of wrestlers ever to do so, or does he show an average performance? What is your thoughts on when Matthew McConaughey, because that is the rumors going on, joins WWE? Do you think he joins it at the Royal Rumble? Do you think he eliminates everybody and goes on to WrestleMania?
First thing, we've never talked Matthew McConaughey on our podcast, so there's one thing I have to do, and I'm sure you're going to catch the reference from one of the great movies that I've ever seen. All right. I
actually thought you were going to go,
That's another one. Here's the thing. Long story short, Matthew McConaughey can do whatever the hell he wants. And we were talking off air via text the last 24 hours about Matthew McConaughey and potentially doing some things in the business. We know he's a big wrestling fan, so he follows it. He's a big fan. He's gotten to rub elbows and hang out with some of the superstars. So for me, if he's going to do it, he's going to crush it. He's going to knock it out of the ballpark. He's going to do a really good job. I don't know if it'll be Pat McAfee-esque, because Pat McAfee, that was really, really good. But I think Matthew McConaughey will do everything in his power to look good. He's done everything in the movie business. I'll even make an example. I'm a huge fan of McConaughey, and here's the thing. Dallas Buyers Club, if you haven't seen it, I believe he dropped about 50 or 60 pounds for that role. So he will do whatever it takes to be really good at what he's doing.
About like 90 actual pounds. And I would not suggest he does that if he wants to get in a WWE ring and not really break bones taking his very first fall. But he's got some sort of history. He was on Maria Menouno's podcast where all of this kind of got brought up. And he was a big fan of world-class championship wrestling back in the Texas area growing up. In fact, he said he got thrown out of a wrestling show twice. He got thrown out for throwing bananas in the ring, then snuck back in and spit a loogie at King Kong Bundy to get thrown out again. So, I mean, with stories like that, I cannot wait to see what he could possibly do in the WWE.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that story too, and when he tells you any story with that great accent and just the way he presents it, it was so entertaining. And that's another thing. His book that he has coming, the book that he has out right now, I did see that they were talking about it on the WWE Network. Him and Drew McIntyre did a little special, and I got to tell you, just them talking about it makes me want to just run through a wall, so to speak. It was so entertaining. And I still have to get the Audible for it because I like to listen to it while I'm in the car. So again, anything Matthew McConaughey wants to do, I'm all on board with it. Vince McMahon, if he wants to do it, get him on board. Let's get it going.
Makes you want to run through a wall is what I think about if Drew McIntyre keeps on this COVID train. At least we can have Goldberg maybe they could just hand him the belt, right? Is that what you want to see? Because Drew McIntyre is out with COVID right now. Do you think he's going to be back by the Royal Rumble? And either way, are you hoping Goldberg becomes champion at the Royal Rumble regardless?
I'm so excited for another Goldberg championship run. I really cannot wait for it. No, not at all. Goldberg should not even be in the picture whatsoever. They need to do what AEW is doing with what I like to call former greats or legends in the business. He can be a coach for somebody. He can be even Ric Flair's doing stuff now with he's kind of partnering up with Lacey Evans at this point. So they could be valets or coaches, as Coach Arn is over in AEW. But come on, you can't put him in the main event for the championship with Drew McIntyre. And everything that I've read up until recording at this point, I'm pretty sure McIntyre will be ready to go by then. It's a good time, I guess, for him to get enough time to get quarantined and ready to go, get a couple negative tests and all that stuff, and get back on track. And I hope Goldberg does not win. We can't have Goldberg as champion. It's going to make AEW look so much better. Which, I mean, let's be honest, the ratings don't lie. AEW is kicking NXT's ass. So I mean, why wouldn't they just go for the whole thing if you're going to keep doing stupid things like that?
Yes, they're kicking NXT's ass, but not Raw or SmackDown.
Not yet. But if they're going to put Goldberg as the champion, that's what. You might as well just throw in the towel at this point because that's ridiculous.
Goldberg's not going to contribute at all to the actual ratings because, as you know and I know, he won't actually be there as champion except for one or two rare occasions to promote defending the belt. But one thing I do, I guess, like about WWE's championship picture right now is the juxtaposition, because having two championships to me is always a difficult thing, because how do you make them unique? How do you make me want to watch both championships? And while you have the star-studded brutes of Drew McIntyre and Goldberg on one end, you got Roman Reigns and Adam Pearce on the other side. And so the interest you have for one is like the opposite of the interest you have, because Adam Pearce, now that is somebody who we would actually kind of find interesting if he did become champion and beat Roman Reigns. He's found himself in the title picture. If you're not familiar with Adam Pearce, he's got quite the wrestling background. He's the one-time NWA 10 pounds of gold champion as Iron Scrap Adam Pearce. He has been up and down the indie circuit. He has wrestled everywhere on this planet. He came into WWE mostly as a coach because they knew his amazing wrestling background. But right now he's entered into a storyline with Roman Reigns. As of recording time, it is Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns, and they're scheduled to sign a contract for the championship match of the Royal Rumble on SmackDown. Do you think that this match actually goes down as scheduled, or do you think this is just kind of like a swerve for like a week or two storyline?
I hope it's not a swerve. I really want to see Adam Pearce in the ring. To kind of add to your earlier point, I'm vested in Adam Pearce, man. I've enjoyed his work. I've learned a lot since since another podcast had him on and talking about his story and where he came from. So of course, thank God for the internet and that you can just do a quick search online and you can find so many great matches. I watched a match with him and Daniel Bryan. I saw some matches with him, Impact. I've seen him all across the indie world. So this guy is legit. He's a legit wrestler. And the thing I got to tell you, and I don't know if you caught it, but I caught it. I think it was last week. Yes, it was last week where Michael Cole. Let me rephrase that. Michael Cole pretty much kind of threw a dig in and said to the audience, yeah, he doesn't really belong in a WWE ring, which I think is a slap in the face because if you're an NWA champion, you know what? That tells me you're pretty damn legit. He was a wrestler for almost 20 years. So for Michael Cole to say that, shut the hell up, Michael Cole. Go do some research.
Michael Cole, that's kind of, the book, the kayfabe kind of, because to WWE fans, or at least to the audience that they're trying to portray, and you've watched wrestling your whole life, WWE likes to pretend that nobody existed until they came to WWE. Yeah. Kane never was Isaac Yankem. Sami Callihan, Salomon Crow was never Sami Callihan. Dean Ambrose was never Jon Moxley. That whole thing. So I get where Michael Cole's coming from because to WWE fans, he's just a backstage producer. He's got no history. Now, Corey Graves, he's kind of got the opposite because he does have the podcast. So, if he was to say it, I would be a little more on the upset side because of the fact that he literally just has the podcast and is very good friends with Adam Pearce, as he knows his background very well.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: Scrap Daddy Adam Pearce. He's been well known from the wrestlers, not only in the locker room in WWE, but AEW, Ring of Honor. You name the independent promotion, he knows so many people in the business. I mean, he even said that Kevin Owens and him have been friends for a long time. Same thing with Corey Graves. I had to think of his name for a second. Corey Graves. They've been friends for a long time. So everybody is rooting for him. And they may not say it on the air. They're going to talk to him backstage. And I'm sure if they're really going to go through with this, you can't tell me Adam Pearce ain't excited for this because you get to lock horns potentially with the best thing in WWE and the best thing arguably in sports entertainment right now, and you could do it at a main pay-per-view. That's pretty damn good. So I'm looking forward to this if it happens. And again, I will not be surprised. I know we're recording just before SmackDown tonight on Friday night. It wouldn't be surprising if they do a swerve and they take him out, quote unquote, and then they replace him with Shinsuke or somebody else. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm hoping it stays to its true form because I want to see it.
Well, I know during the pandemic, one thing you have missed the most because of the travel bans is that WWE hasn't been running all these grand foreign shows. They haven't gone to Saudi Arabia. They would have gone at least 2 times by now. But alas, WWE is giving us some sort of foreign-themed presentation. And on January the 26th, a Tuesday night, as of right now, not on the WWE Network, but on Sony 10-1, Sony 10-3, and Sony Max on India's cable networks on their holiday known as Republic Day, WWE presents Superstar Spectacle. And one thing I want to just start before we get to that is I love the names WWE picks whenever they have a foreign show. They are the most creative. I mean, you can tell. I mean, Super Showdown, Crown Jewel, Greatest Royal Rumble, now Superstar Spectacle. It must have taken them hours upon hours to come up with Superstar Spectacle. Why don't they just call it Really Big Show or Big India Event? I mean, what a pretty lackluster name. Superstar Spectacle, what does that even tell you? But either way, as of right now, I've heard they've actually even filmed this in the Thunderdome, so unfortunately they won't be heading over to India for the show. It'll be like Tribute to the Troops, in which at one time Tribute to the Troops was pretty sweet because they actually went to Iraq and filmed the show from there. Now they just film some dark matches after a SmackDown taping and slap a bunch of clips together of some troops in the crowd and call that something amazing. But this show is expected to have actual WWE wrestlers because they can't just go off their India talent alone. Charlotte Flair, Rey Mysterio, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Bayley, The New Day, Shinsuke Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, Bobby Roode, Ricochet, who just signed a new contract and is making sure fans know that he is not leaving WWE anytime soon, and even Ric Flair are scheduled to be there, probably with Lacey Evans. But if you're looking for that reason that they're having the show, that India talent, boy, they're going to have it all. First, we're going to have the returning Jinder Mahal, because the Canadian but Indian descent, Jinder Mahal, will be on hand. The Bollywood boys, I can't wait to see those guys. WWE superstars Samar and Sunil Singh. The first all-India tag team, or Indian tag team, Indus Sher, which is Rinku and Swarav. NXT superstar Jeet Rama. The first Indian WWE women's star, Kavita Devi. And Great Khali's personal trainees, Giant Zanjeer, who is 7'2" and 340 pounds, and Dilsher Shanky, who is 7 foot, 310 pounds, as well as the first ever Indian high flyer, Guru Raj. And I want to I'll ask you a question in this new segment I'm going to call, is it racist? Is it racist that I was looking through the list here and going, where's Mansoor? I don't see Mansoor. Mansoor is always in these. And then I had to think, oh, yeah, he's Saudi Arabian, not Indian. So they couldn't use the gimmick. But so I guess, is it racist that I immediately thought, where's Mansoor in this? But are you going to watch this? Because it's eventually going to be on the WWE Network. Are you going to watch this superstar spectacle? What is your level of interest? Rate it for me.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to watch. It doesn't sound really appealing to me at all. It just sounds like a glorified, live event, so to speak. It doesn't sound like it's going to be that great. So I got to put myself at a 1 on that.
I am interested to see some of these Indian superstars because, to be honest with you, they seem to actually have a little more uniqueness than Mansoor. I mean, Mansoor, what they just told us is that he's from Saudi Arabia, so that's why he should get a contract, because all the Saudi Arabia shows, he's from Saudi Arabia. Great. But the Great Khali's trainees, are these going to be future Great Khali's? Hopefully not. Hopefully they can actually do much better with their 7-foot statures and be more like Big Shows than Great Khali's. And no disrespect to the Punjabi Playboy, but after about 2 weeks, if you remember, he was quite the fierce force that WWE was trying to make him out to be. And then quickly he lost, I believe, to John Cena or Batista, and they just put him right back down the line as some sort of oddity. He would have fit great, actually, into the Odysseys back in the Attitude Era. But, the first Indian women's star and the NXT, or the Indian-born high flyer, yeah, I guess. As for the rest of the people that are just wrestlers, not so much. But the ones that have some sort of difference to them, I'm interested in seeing. And more importantly, I hope that they're good based off of their talents and not just based off of WWE wanting to make money in India. So they're setting up NXT India, because that's actually something I'm really not super excited about. I've heard they're going to have NXT India, and how many minor leagues can you have? NXT's great. NXT UK, NXT India, well, let's just say NXT UK. I've even fallen off of that. So NXT India, I'll probably never even get on board with that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I try to get into NXT UK. I mean, I'll watch it from time to time if they got like a takeover or something. But yeah, my level of interest for NXT UK is diminished over time. I will say this though: the one point I will make about this India show that's coming up is you mentioned Indus Sher. I was wondering when they were going to use them again, because they were in the doghouse because of one of the members of the team there. I can't remember which one offhand, but he leaked out a photo, and it told the finish of an NXT TakeOver match between, I think it was Keith Lee and Adam Cole, if I'm not mistaken. So he was getting a lot of heat for that, and pretty much they were taking off. I mean, they were getting no push at that point, because you just opened the door and showed something that you shouldn't have showed, which doesn't look good in the business. So it's good to see that. Okay, I'll change my mind. I'm going to say 2, just because I want to see Indus Sher and just see what they are looking like in a pandemic world, where they really could use the live audiences to really learn how to work in front of an audience and get better and refine their skills. So I'll say 2. I changed my mind.
So we're going to start a little new segment here. Who knows if it'll last a million weeks or it'll just last this week. It's called Kayfabe Yes or No. Truth or lies, essentially. We'll start with something that's not kayfabe yes or no, but it's just a question I'll ask you. Truth or lies? WWE superstars upset with fake crowd noise in Thunderdome find it annoying. That's what Dave Meltzer says. Do you think that's true, or do you think that's false?
Well, it came from Meltzer, so I'm going to say it's false.
Yeah, the reason I wonder if it's true or false is why would they essentially be annoyed with fake crowd noise? I think it'd be annoying, and wrestlers even said it on every podcast you listen to. Corey Graves has talked with everybody else about WrestleMania. This was the hardest WrestleMania to put on. This was the hardest WrestleMania, and it was the hardest weeks of wrestling to get wrestlers motivated to wrestle, hearing nothing. So why would they go out of their way and say that they're annoyed with fake crowd noise after they specifically said how hard it was to wrestle with no noise? So it'd be very contradicted to what they're saying in the past. But we move on to kayfabe, yes or no. The first kayfabe question is, Jay White out of New Japan Wrestling, his picture taken off of the New Japan Wrestling roster website. Kayfabe, yes or no?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to say this. I think it's kayfabe. I think it's kayfabe because I believe, from what I've been reading, he's going to be in New Japan for a long time. That's because I read some stories because I was wondering, because there's been a lot of reports out there saying that he's definitely coming to WWE very soon. But I guess supposedly back in 2018 he told the Young Bucks, yeah, man, he's got like a 7-year deal or something, like long-term deal in New Japan. So that's totally kayfabe. Unless WWE wants this guy so bad and they make New Japan an offer to buy out his contract, almost like buying out, like when you're a Major League Baseball team, you're putting up the posting fee to take a Japanese player from the Japan leagues to the major leagues. Maybe they do something like that, but is he that much of a commodity where you do that? I don't know. So for me, it's kayfabe. He's going to be in New Japan probably for the next couple more. And I would say more, not even a couple years. I'd say next 5 years.
WWE says Randy Orton suffered burns after the whole Alexa Bliss fireball incident to end Monday Night Raw. Kayfabe, yes or no?
I'll say kayfabe. I think it's just, I think they're just building this up for storyline purposes. I don't really think it was anything to go right home about. That's just me.
But you don't think he suffered any burns?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Saturday night, Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view. Your main event is being changed. Alex Shelley, one half of the Motor City Machine Guns, teaming up with Rich Swann. Well, not anymore. He says he cannot fulfill his duties as part of that 6-man main event match with Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Rich Swann and Motor City Machine Guns due to unavoidable circumstances, which means that Moose will fill in for him in the main event. Moose and Rich Swann are actually kind of rivals, not rivals, but I guess adversaries in a way. Moose has said he's wanted to try to compete for that Impact Championship in the near future. And there's been some storyline that Rich Swann was in the air when he found out about this information and was not going to be too happy when he knew that Moose was now going to be part of his team. And Moose even said he's worked and played with people in the NFL who he wasn't fans with before, but he knows how to be a part of a team. So Alex Shelley out of the main event for Hard to Kill. Kayfabe or no?
I'll say no. I don't think it's kayfabe. I think this is completely true. I think it's COVID is what it sounds like to me. I think it's a COVID issue. Everything I've read tells me it's not kayfabe whatsoever. I think it's a legitimate issue that, you know what, I give Impact a lot of credit because I don't follow it as much as maybe you do or some other people do, but I think this is the first time I've actually heard anybody that may or may not have had COVID. So, if they made it this far without it.
I like the term unavoidable circumstances. I've never even heard that before.
That to me
unavoidable.
That to me tells me it's pandemic related. So it can't be kayfabe. It's kayfabe. It can't be. It's got to be. It's probably COVID. I would bet 90% sure that it's COVID.
So that's the end of kayfabe, yes or no, as we move on to Hard to Kill Impact Wrestling. And as we talked about before, this is why I disagree with the WWE wrestlers, because this is something that needs some crowd noise pretty badly. That's the one wrestling company out there, I guess, still that doesn't have crowd noise, because AEW actually has kind of a crowd, and WWE has the fake crowd noise. and any indie wrestling or anything that's going on actually has people in the crowd as well. I think Ring of Honor actually might also not have crowd noise. I'll have to check with that, or if they have some people ringside. But I think Ring of Honor might also be crowd noiseless. But Impact Wrestling could use some crowd noise as they move forward to another big pay-per-view. Quick question I will ask you. Now, I know your interest is not the greatest for any Impact Wrestling, but is your interest greater for this year's Hard to Kill with Kenny Omega involved, or last year's Hard to Kill when it looked like it was pretty certain and ended up becoming true that Tessa Blanchard was going to become the first ever heavyweight champion of a men's division, in which she ended up becoming the champion? That was in front of a live crowd, and that was back before the whole pandemic. So your interest level, I guess, if there was an event you were going to want to watch more on television, would you want to watch last year's Hard to Kill more or this year's Hard to Kill?
I'd want to watch this year's. I'd like to watch this year's pay-per-view because of Kenny Omega, and also, now that Moose is involved, I'm a big fan of Moose. I've actually wished he'd be in WWE. I've been following his career for a long time, and actually, I followed his career before he was even a wrestler because he actually played football in our hometown here in Syracuse, New York. He was an offensive lineman for Syracuse University. So I've known who he is. He played in the NFL as well for a short time. But I think he
was involved in last year's Hard to Kill, though. He's been involved in.
I know, but with
the main event
in the mix in that match, like I'm gonna watch the pay-per-view because of that match alone. So I might not watch everything else, but I'm gonna watch that because number one, it's Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega, I'm a huge fan of. But watching him in a match with Moose, I'm interested in. I could give or take Rich Swann. I'm not the biggest Rich Swann fan. I think he's decent for what he is. But if that's the best you got in Impact, that's not saying much because he didn't really do that much in WWE. Let's be honest.
That's why I said which one you'd rather watch on TV, not which one you'd rather be in person for, because I knew it's pretty clear. Tessa Blanchard's pretty good at wrestling. Kenny Omega's on the card. I feel like that's somebody you want to see in person. Now, the television's different, but yeah, if I could have a ticket to an event where Kenny Omega's in the main event or Tessa Blanchard's in the main event, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to pick Kenny Omega every time. I'm probably going to pick Kenny Omega over many WWE guys.
I'm going to add one thing regarding this, what we were just talking about with Tessa Blanchard. I'm going to project this right now, and I might fall flat and be completely wrong, but you're going to hear it from me first. I think in this year's Royal Rumble, Women's Royal Rumble, you're going to see Tessa Blanchard in WWE. That's just my take, and from things that I've been reading, I got a decent feeling about it. I'll probably get let down, but if I do, you heard it here first.
So you said it's only a one-match card, but that's where I come in because there are some other matches that I think look of interest. Obviously, you got the Knockouts Championship, Deonna Purrazzo versus Tyra Valkyrie. I don't know why it was mispronounced here or misspelled here on my sheet, but that seems like it would be a decent. Yes, Taya. Yes, Valkyrie. That seems like it'll be a decent match. Another decent match, I think, on the card is Eric Young, Diener, and Joe Doring versus Cousin Jake. I won't lie, I don't know who that is. Rhino and Tommy Dreamer in what is called an Old School Rules 6-man tag. And it's funny they call it Old School Rules because I had to do some research on this. And thinking Old School Rules meaning, okay, that means it's going to be a pure old school wrestling match. No, it's a no disqualification match. That seems to be the opposite of Old School Rules. So Old School Rules is no rules. Good to know. Would have thought it would have been the opposite.
It up. And if it's got Tommy Dreamer and Rhino involved, it's going to be a lot of ECW. It's going to be ECW-esque.
And Eric Young, who, I guess he would have probably fit in good back in the day in ECW pretty well, I think. Obviously, his NXT days with Sanity, pretty good there. But the actual match, if you want to talk about no disqualification, because I kind of wish this one had rules, so it doesn't take away from a match that will have no rules, and that's a barbed wire massacre. You won't find the word massacre used to describe any WWE match anytime soon in their TV PG era. Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan, think these guys are going to tear the house down because both these guys do exactly that every time out, especially when they're going against each other. I think that's going to be the match of the night. I think that probably maybe should be your main event match, if you had to have one to actually go off the air with. But I'm looking forward to that match. And another match I'm looking forward to is actually the pre-show match. Brian Myers, you all know him as Kurt Hawkins. Josh Alexander, one half of the tag team, the Great North. And also there is a tag team women's match for the reinstated Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship. I don't know how many people, I guess they said that Twitter was just going crazy trying to have them bring back the Knockouts Tag Team Championship. I wonder what Impact deems to be Twitter going crazy, because it's funny. I was watching Impact a couple weeks ago, I think, and they said, we got to thank you for making us trending worldwide tonight on Twitter. We're number 11 in the world. And it's like, I don't think WWE would go out and say we're number 11 in the world right now on Twitter, especially too when they're going literally against nothing's going on in the world. Like they're number 11 because against some sort of new ABC game show and Fox News Tucker Carlson or something. Yeah. So yeah, quite an accomplishment, Impact Wrestling. Yeah, but they're bringing back the Impact Tag Team Championship for the women's. That's going to be defended or crowned for a first time. And an intergender tag team match. Tenalia Dashwood, as you know, as Emelina from her WWE days, teamed up with a guy named Caleb against Rosemary, who I guess is, Impact Wrestling's Asuka / Ember Moon. I don't know. She got a horror theme. That's all I know. And Crazy Steve. So some decent matches on the card. I'll pay attention to there's 9 total matches, probably about 5 of them. Either way, I'll watch it. I don't know if I'm going to watch it live, but I'll watch it. I'm interested in it because why wouldn't I be? It stars Kenny Omega and AEW. If they let Kenny Omega compete, I imagine he tears the house down wherever he goes. Even when he was in AAA in Mexico back in December for one of their pay-per-views, he didn't phone it in. It was Kenny Omega 100%.
And I'm just going to say this. I changed my mind. Of course, I'm going to flip-flop a little bit. We were talking India for a minute. I changed it from 1 to 2. For here, speaking of 1 to 2, I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch 2 matches now that you mentioned the card. I do want to watch Mr. Sami Callihan and Eddie, so I think that'll be another good match. I agree. After you said that, I'm thinking to myself, I got to watch that match too. So I'll watch, hopefully it's the co-main event, so I don't have to watch the other matches, because those are the only 2 matches I'm going to pay attention to. And I think both will be pretty good.
So wrapping up this week's edition of the show, the final thing I'm going to go out on is probably the highlight for me in the world of professional wrestling. It happened probably an hour before we started recording here. Now, Brandon, you're very familiar with Cameo, and we could go on and on about if you think that's worth your money or not. But here is one that either way finds some enjoyment. Now, our good friend, everyone's good friend, Virgil, who definitely is no stranger to needing money until the day he dies. Quite the opposite of the $1 Million Man gimmick, I guess. He made a cameo for somebody. Now, I retweeted it out there, and I thought it was hilarious because it was bad. It was just really, you're reading from a teleprompter, reading from a script, kind of felt very phoned in. I don't know how much he's charging for cameos, $25, $50. But you didn't get your money's worth because it was pretty ridiculous. And I thought that's why everybody was retweeting it. I thought, boy, this is just the funniest thing because it's so bad. But I was wrong. And Brandon, I'm going to have you go watch this, find this on Twitter after we're done in the show if you haven't seen it already. But let's just say it's nothing to do with what he's saying that had everybody retweet this and say, what the hell is going on? It's more or less what's going on between his legs that, let's just say, something makes an appearance, and it's just, you got to watch it. It's hilarious. You would record this, not notice this, and then send it out. Hopefully he didn't send this cameo out to anybody under the age of 18 years old, or Virgil could be in some trouble. But that is the highlight in the world of wrestling for me. Virgil's cameo out there, both hilariously bad from a cameo perspective and just a general perspective. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of The Heel of the Face. For Brandon, for myself, Jared, we will talk to you next week.